That's what Napoleon Hill was talking about when he's talking about a burning desire. When you have a mind that's open to everything and attached nowhere, that allows you to just say, yes, I'll try this, yes to life, instead of living in fear, which is what most people do. They live in some kind of fear. Fear I'm not good enough, fear I won't succeed, fear somebody else won't like me. On and on it goes, and fear is the cause of so much illness on our planet, as well as mental illness as well.
It really is. And the common question I get, because I hold regular Q&A sessions on Twitter, and the common question I often get is people feel very stuck in their lives, and a lot of that is due to the fear of making a big change, like you've made many times. What would you say to someone who is feeling right now stuck in their lives?
I was saying,
and they use that specific word.
Yeah, if you're feeling stuck, your stuckness is going to have a physical impact on you. Number one, you're going to get sick if you stay stuck. I don't know what it's going to be. I mean, it could be diabetes, it could be cancer, it could be high blood pressure, it could be depression. Whatever it might be, your stuckness is really a reflection of your unwillingness to look at what you're here for. What is it all about? And if you understand that you are here for something, and the answer to that is, Muktananda, this great spiritual saint, when people would walk into his ashram, and he would stand there at the door and he would ask them questions. Do you know the difference between good and God? Do you know the difference between good? And if they said no, he would just form with his index finger and his thumb, he would form a circle, a zero. And he said, to indicate that the only difference between good and God is zero. There is no difference, okay? So that if it makes you feel good, it's making you feel God. And if it doesn't interfere with anybody else's right to feel good, that's where you have to go. So what is it that makes you feel good? What is it that inside of you just lights a fire inside of you? You say, I know when I'm living my excitement. Right now, in this moment, in this interview, I'm living my excitement. I'm excited, okay? So I know that I'm on purpose because I'm feeling good about being able to get this message across. When I'm on stage, I know that I feel good. Now, when I'm drawing, or painting, I don't feel good at all. And consequently, my painting reflects that. Even when there's loud noise and there's music coming on, I don't feel good with that because I like silence and so on. But there are other people. I met a woman the other day who plays a flute for a living. I mean, she's a flautist, however you say that. Because I asked her both ways. She said, we're correct. I said, what made you become a flautist? It's like I heard flute music my whole life. I've always kind of liked it. But she said, she heard it when she was 5 years old, and she absolutely knew that this is what she had to do. And she said, and I went off of that path, and I tried other things. I tried being in sales. I tried being in this and that, and none of them ever touched me like the flute is. So she said I became expert at it, and I began to play it, and then I began to write about it, and then I joined an orchestra, and it's her whole life. And isn't it great that there are people who could hear a flute, when they're 5 years old? I was just in Abu Dhabi this year, and I went to a place called the Falcon Hospital. And in a Falcon Hospital, like in that part of the world, falcons are really revered because they were for the Bedouins and the people who lived in the desert, a falcon could supply the food for the entire clan. Because they could go out and they hunt, and they trained them how to hunt and then and not to eat their prey, and then they would come and teach them how to do that. And so this woman that runs this Falcon Hospital in Abu Dhabi heard me speaking there. I was invited by the royal family to come over there and speak. And she said, I'd love to invite you out to my Falcon Hospital. I went out there. It was one of the most intriguing days of my life. I walked in there, and there were all these falcons sitting in there, and I had one on my arm, and I actually fed a bird to a falcon that ate it out of my hand. And I said, where did she was the world's experts on falcons. She said I was like 6 or 7 years old, and she was living in Germany, and I saw a film about a falcon, and she said I just knew that this is what I was here for. And she has people fly from all over the world and bring their falcons to this because it's like falconry is something that they practice over there in that part of the world. They have competitions and so on. And she has the only falcon hospital in the world because something stirred her when she was 6 or 7 years old, and she was never able to escape it. when you live your excitement, whatever it might be me writing books or being on stage, or it might be just looking at a falcon or hearing a flute, and it just touches something deep inside of you, and you feel now you have your choice, you know.
And you know, Wayne, one thing I've noticed both in this interview and in your book, you reference so many different sources that had an influence on you. I think part of finding that passion is exposing yourself to so many different types of writing, you know, different belief systems, different, you know, whatever it is. You know, just keeping yourself open for the opportunity to find what that passion is, because you could find it at 6, or you could find it at 60 or 70 or whatever. There's no real limit.
Well, you could never escape the now. So everything takes place in the now. Everything that ever happened to me in the past didn't happen in the past. It happened in the present. It happened in the now. And everything that's ever going to happen to me isn't going to happen to me in the future. It's going to happen to me now, in this moment. So it's like being able to live in the now. And I'm just editing my daughter's book, Don't Die With Your Music Still in You. And she was saying in there how when we were growing up in my mom and my dad's, home, speaking about me and my wife, it was, you know, there was the Quran in there. There was the Bhagavad Gita in there. There was, you know, the Bible was in there. There were spiritual texts from all over the place. There were symbols of all different religions in the place. And my children were always encouraged to expose yourself to all of these. And,
right, but
and if any,
you've also mentioned James Frey's Million Little Pieces, Virginia Woolf, Maharaja's I Am That, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
You know, Rumi, you've even in this interview, you've mentioned so many different, sources and resources, and that, gives you pleasure and propels you forward. And I think that's a thing that a lot of people don't do. They sort of say, okay, I exposed myself to everything when I was in school, and now I've got to figure it out on my own. But like you've said, you know, and this is in your third, lesson, third path to enlightenment, you're never really alone. There's always that, extra partner. There's always the universe around you that's throwing more opportunities to find resources to help you. And to never forget that, I think, is an important lesson.
Absolutely. I had another great teacher in my life was Carl Jung, and I was trained as a Jungian analyst at the beginning of my doctoral studies. And he had a very important observation. He said, at the same moment that you're a protagonist in your own life and you're making choices, he said at the very same moment you're also the extra or the spear carrier in a much larger drama. You are, in fact, he said, doomed to make choices. Now, this is think of that word, James, doomed to make choices. Such a paradox, okay? If you're doomed, then you're not making choices. If you're making choices, you're obviously not doomed. But he said you have to live with both of those. Now, here's how I explain this, because we have to close out this interview. He said, I say to you how I interpret that, how I understood that. First of all, think about your body, the body that you're in. Now, you're in a male body. I'm in a male body. And I'm in a body that's about 6'2". It has blue eyes. It has no hair on its head. It has, it has certain characteristics and so on. And in essence, that's what, for this incarnation, I'm doomed. I'm doomed to live. I'm not going to be in a female 4'10" body. I'm not going to be in any other, but this is the body that I get. Okay. Now, what kind of choices do I have to make within that context? Well, I can decide how healthy it's going to be. I can decide whether I'm going to exercise it or not. I can decide actually how long it's going to live. There's many, many choices that I make about this body within the context of being doomed to live in this body and not any other body. Now, if you take this metaphor and you extend it to not just the physical body, but to the rest of your life and all that you are in essence, you were given a dharma. You showed up here with a purpose. You showed up here with an energy that propels you, and there's something that excites you, and it's like whether you want to be a falconer, or whether you want to be a musician, or whether you want to be a writer, or whether you want to raise horses in Montana, whatever it might be, there's something that excites you. Now, you have been doomed. In other words, this is your dharma. This is what you're here for. But you're making choices. And the choices that you make all along, all the course corrections that you make involve, am I willing? Am I willing to do whatever it takes to make this come true? I've always been willing. Well, are you determined? That is, are you going to not let anything interfere with it? Yes, you have to have that determination. Am I fearless? In other words, am I going to get the fear out of me and come from a place of love, from divine love? Am I using compassion for myself and compassion for others? And ultimately, do I reach that state, the highest rung on the ladder, if you will? You know, when Rumi said, when you are born, a ladder is placed before you to help you to escape from this world, to understand that you're in this world, but you're not of this world. And when you reach the top of that ladder, the top rung on that ladder of divine love, you realize that yes, you are doomed. You're to be a writer. You're to do all of these things, but you also make choices and course corrections along the way. And they come from that. Those are the kind of choices, just like the choice you make about how your body is going to be. When you understand that, when you understand that you showed up here for a reason and a purpose, and now I'm going to be willing, and I'm going to be fearless, I'm going to be determined, I'm going to be compassionate, then you can make, you know, you won't get to the end of your life, because I just read a book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying by a woman in Australia who was a hospice nurse. And she interviewed people every day who were dying and asked them what were their regrets. And she wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of People Who Were Dying. And she wrote a book about it. And the number one regret of people who were in hospice care, under her care as a nurse, the number one regret of the people dying was, I wish I'd have had the courage to live my life the way I knew I should, rather than listening to other people tell me what to do. That's the essence of it all.
That's really important, because, as you said, you're doomed to make your choices. But if you don't make your choices, you're even more doomed.
Absolutely.
Because someone else is making the choices for you.
Right.
And, you know, on that note, Wayne, I really appreciate you spending the time and on this interview. I really want to recommend I Can See Clearly Now. It's a great book. It's inspirational. I also recommend all of the books that you reference in the book and in this interview, because I think they're all transformational books. And once again, thank you for coming on the show and being interviewed.
It's my pleasure. God bless you. Good luck to you,
Thanks,
my
Wayne.
friend. Namaste.
Stansberry Radio is a purely public broadcast and is not intended to be personalized financial advice for any individual specific situation. Each individual's financial situation is unique, and Stansberry Radio should not be relied upon and or considered as personalized advice. Stansberry Radio is not licensed to render personalized advice and should be considered simply the public opinions of Stansberry Radio and its guests. Recommendations on specific financial securities are not intended to address any listener's particular financial situation.